Hi there, strikers. There's something uniquely disturbing about people vanishing into thin air. Read about these incredibly strange, unsolved cases. Although these disappearances span centuries, locations, age ranges, and circumstances, there's one common thread shared between them: a lack of closure. There are theories, speculations, and investigations, but never a decisive answer. On our incoming episode, I'm going to feature some of the cases of mysterious disappearances, of some missing that just disappear without any trace.
The mysterious disappearance of Crystal Hogg. Her family certainly couldn't predict that her daughter, Crystal, would go missing on a seemingly uneventful day. The girl was only 14, for all they knew, happy with her life in Baltimore. The Hoggs naturally feared the worst about her disappearance, and as the years went on, the likelihood of seeing Crystal again seemed slim to none. They never gave up hope, though, and in the end, that paid off for them. 2 decades after vanishing, the family was reunited with a grown-up Crystal. However, they weren't ready for the revelations that she had in store for them. It's not easy being a single mom, especially when you have 4 kids to take care of. Simply raising one child is a full-time responsibility, but Cynthia wasn't one to complain. She knew that if she didn't work hard to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads, no one else would. So, she just got on with things, hopeful that things would get easier one day. She had no idea what was coming on that fateful day in 1997. While Cynthia might have thought that 4 kids were a lot to handle, that didn't mean she wanted any of them disappearing. She would have rather worked herself into the ground taking care of those children than suddenly have one less mouth to feed. She told her to stay around the house today, presumably because Cynthia was busy working. Crystal agreed to do just that. She clocked off and returned home. She realized that she just walked into her own worst nightmare. There was no sign of Crystal when Cynthia came home. Her bed was empty, and she was nowhere to be seen. Naturally, the mother became concerned, especially as she'd told her daughter to hang around the house that day. Hoping that Crystal was just with a friend or something, she called people asking if they knew where she was. Unfortunately, no one came back with a positive response. From that day on, every day was spent searching for Crystal in one way or another. Cynthia couldn't just sit at home and leave everything up to the cops because they didn't know her daughter like she did. So, as for the police, they were confident that Crystal's disappearance was her own doing, rather than someone kidnapping her. It wasn't uncommon for teenagers to run away, and they believed that the little evidence they had pointed to her choosing to leave. That wasn't what her family wanted to hear. Although the cops might have believed that Crystal was a runaway, that doesn't mean they immediately gave up looking for her. Months after her disappearance, her status was changed to being endangered missing, which essentially meant that they were looking for a body. The fact she hadn't been seen for so long didn't fill them with any hope that she'd ever be found alive. Parker's investigation essentially took things back to the start, with the detective interviewing anyone he thought could help uncover something vital. It was nothing that hadn't already been done before, and given how much time had passed since the disappearance, it was likely that memories and details would be harder to recall. Still, there was always a possibility that a new line of questioning would reveal a vital clue. Unfortunately, as was perhaps expected, Parker's investigation failed to uncover anything new. Even after they put out sketches of what they believed Crystal would look like after all those years, people still said they hadn't seen her. It seemed inevitable that the teenager, now an adult woman, would never be found, so the police investigation basically slowed to a halt. The cops might have lost faith in ever finding Crystal, but that didn't mean her family did. Even though a part of them believed they'd never see the girl again, they refused to give up hope of being reunited. If they stopped believing that she'd come home, there'd be no one left waiting for her. Obviously, as the years went on, certain changes made it easier for the family to search for Crystal in new ways. The rise of social media was particularly influential, with Cynthia and her children now having a platform to share their story with the world. One way in which they kept the search for Crystal going was by posting her photo online every time her birthday came around. This was something that Bianca, one of her sisters, did. After more than 20 years had passed since Crystal's disappearance, it seemed inevitable that the family would never see her again. How could someone be gone for so long and still turn up alive and well? However, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Bianca received an unexpected message on social media. It was alleged to be from Crystal. When Bianca arrived and came face to face with the woman who messaged her, there was no denying that it was Crystal. She might have looked extremely different after so many years, but something about her screamed of her sister. Bianca was understandably elated at finally being reunited with her long-lost sibling. However, that didn't change the fact that she was full of questions, and the family needed answers. Fortunately, Crystal didn't hold anything back. She revealed that the police were right to think that she'd run away in 1997. That was exactly what Crystal had done when she was only 14, with no money and no idea of what to do with her life. Crystal wasn't exactly in the best position to run away. When Crystal ran away from home, she only had enough cash to get her on a bus to New York. From there, she changed her surname to Saunders and lied that she was 23. She worked odd jobs to earn money and save herself from having to return home. No matter the struggles, the teen didn't look back. She was determined to make a go of things with her new life. No matter the challenges she faced, she settled into a routine and continued to pay the bills and keep a roof over her head, all while her family was worried sick about her at home. Although Crystal had run away from her family, that didn't mean she could cope without the love of others in her life. She still missed her relatives from time to time. She became a mom shortly after moving to New York City. After giving birth to her first child, a son, she went on to have 3 more. Now, not only did she have an adopted family in the form of the Dominican community, but she also had her own flesh and blood to love and care for too. She'd avoid questions about her mom and siblings, but the person asking them was her oldest son, Brian. The boy wanted to know if he had grandparents or other relatives out there that he'd never met. She might never have returned to Baltimore if her children didn't start asking questions. They wanted to know about her family, and thanks to Facebook, Crystal made contact with her sister, who eventually brought the family back together. The reason she ran away was that she was being abused by a neighbor. Crystal believed that her mom knew about the abuse. Hearing what her daughter had experienced as a child broke Cynthia's heart. For decades, Crystal had kept her abuse and the belief that her mom was somehow involved with it a secret. Putting it out in the open certainly didn't magically make everything okay again. In fact, it risked pushing the mother and daughter apart again after finally reuniting. However, while speaking her truth might not have immediately solved everything, it did allow Crystal to begin coming to terms with her trauma. Even though she had her doubts about her mother, Crystal was obviously interested in making an effort to reunite with her. The former runaway apparently moved to Baltimore so that she could be closer to her family, with the pair reportedly meeting up regularly to patch things up. Crystal still had unresolved issues with her mother, and while they worked on their bond, it wasn't easy. Cynthia just wanted to love her daughter and move on from the past. Hopefully, that will be possible now.
The lack of evidence in some of these missing persons cases not only hinders the investigation, but leaves a lot of room for conjecture, speculation, and conspiracy.